Hello, my vibrant friend. Thanks for being with me here today. I have some exciting news. We are rebranding the podcast. If you have noticed that we've had some pauses over the last month or so, we've been making plans and making some changes, inviting new guests, and our podcast is new. It's going to be called now the Vibrant Menopause Podcast. We are still going to focus on weight loss and women's health, and you'll hear a lot about food here because people want to know what myself and other experts can tell you about what the best things are to eat for weight loss, but also for your midlife body, your new menopause body. We all notice that this happens, right? And we're going to start mixing in a few other topics that are important and interesting to midlife women. So I hope you love the changes. So here we go, the Vibrant Menopause Podcast. All right, today we're actually talking about gluten-free for weight loss and menopause health. So some of you have gone gluten-free and some of you lost weight with it and some of you lost weight and then it came back. Some of you didn't lose weight with it and wondered why you didn't lose weight. Excuse me as I choke on my own saliva this morning. So we'll talk about why it doesn't help you lose weight being gluten-free, why being gluten-free isn't better for your new menopause body than not being gluten-free. But I'm going to also tell you, please stay for this, what pivots you can make that will give you what you were hoping you were going to get when you went gluten-free or when you considered it. So there are some pivots that will give you the underlying desires you wanted and goals that you wanted without actually going gluten-free. Okay. So going gluten-free in 2024 is actually different than it was a while back. Something you may have heard snippets of this, or if you know me personally, my husband and I have both been gluten-free for more than a decade now. We both have autoimmune disease in our family. Without getting deep into our own personal medical issues, we actually have different diagnoses, but both have to eat gluten-free. We had different blood test results. We had actually different symptoms, but we did end up having to go gluten-free a year apart. One of us had to go gluten-free with a diagnosis, and then a year later, the other one. So we've been doing this for a good long time, and I know some of you have done it even longer. So when I went gluten-free, within the first 3 months, I lost a pant size. I was like, well, at least I got that. I can see why people go gluten-free for weight loss. But what I'll tell you is that times were very different that long ago. And when I talk to other people who've been gluten-free for a long time, they get this as well, right? So when you first have to go gluten-free, there's a lot of mourning and loss. And one of the things that my husband and I both really felt bad about was bread. And every time we met someone else who was gluten-free, we would ask them, what kind of bread do you buy? What's your recommendation? And they would tell us, this brand or another. And then 100% of the time, that person would say, just so you know, you actually just eat less bread. So sit with that one, right? The other thing I would tell you is there were not all these wonderful baking mixes for gluten-free. Now I go to Trader Joe's and I think, oh, what kind of muffin can I make that has a gluten-free mix? Or what kind of brownie do they have? And even when I go to Target or other grocery stores, the same. All these mixes are there. And there are also these baking mixes that you can just substitute into a recipe, right? Most of these that are, one-for-one mixes do very well for cookies and cakes in particular, maybe not so much with other recipes, but that's available. Now, when we had to go gluten-free at first, I had about 6 or 7 flours in my cupboard. They went bad easily, so sometimes I kept them in the fridge. I had to mix at least 5 flours anytime I made anything, bread, cookies, anything, or it wouldn't turn out. So if you can imagine, I made those baked goods a lot less often because it took a lot of time and experimentation and mixing. And sometimes I would get a recipe that had 5 flours and I only had 4 of those flours. And then if I mixed something else in, it didn't work. So again, much less cookies and cakes going into my mouth. And I should tell you too that my husband did also lose weight at that time. So here we are eating less bread, less cookies, less cake. If your friend told you, I dropped a pant size because I ate less bread, cookies, and cake, you would not be surprised, right? Well, that was what gluten-free was, more than a decade ago. So what to know in 2024? So if some people still try going gluten-free for weight loss, and it's not as common a trend now because people are finding it's not that helpful. Because if you swap gluten-free products for regular products, it does not lead to weight loss and it does not lead to better menopause health. In fact, I would say that swapping at menopause might even give you some weight gain. So let me tell you why. So in these products that we switch out, the gluten-free flours and starches are actually more highly processed than what you're getting in a regular bread or a regular cookie. They are a higher glycemic index. So your blood sugar goes up higher when you eat them than if you ate something that was just a regular cookie or a regular bread. Just to give you an idea of this, when I am using some of these gluten-free flours, tapioca starch, potato starch, rice flour, when I pour those into a bowl, I have to pour them very carefully because they're powder and they will puff out into the air and I don't want to breathe that in. And I'm also trying to get enough into my recipe. So those are so highly processed. And if you can consider that the difference between a whole grain and then a powder, when we go to powder form and that highly processed an item, then we're looking at something that's definitely going to shoot your blood sugar up. And if you will recall, in menopause, we're fighting some insulin resistance. So high blood sugars do not help us with our health or with weight loss with our menopause bodies. And this also starts happening for those in perimenopause. So the only flour that doesn't do this is almond flour. Almond flour has a lower glycemic index. I still do some from scratch baking that's gluten-free. And I've noticed that the almond flours that I'm buying now, they're advertised, oh, this is even finer than before. So I'm getting where I used to get something that was more like an almond meal where it was a little thicker and I had to work with it a little bit. Now it is more fine. And I think, wow, I wonder if that changes the glycemic index on that flour. I don't have the answer to that, but like I said, anything that is more finely processed is not going to be as good for you. So I'm not sure that works. And also you will notice almond flour cookies, almond flour crackers, and that may perk your ears up to say, oh, this is really good. Except read the label. My, almond nut crackers also have rice flour in them. I've noticed that any cookie that I've looked at that has that is advertised as an almond flour cookie also usually has tapioca starch, potato starch, all these really highly processed things. So just know that if it says almond flour, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be healthier because it's not all almond flour. It's got those other things in it. So there we are, 2024. There's still a lot of highly processed food. So swapping the gluten-free products for regular is not going to help you out. So how did I drop that pant size? As I said, less bread, less cookies, less cake. So what did I have instead? I had more whole grains. I still had some white rice, but there were times when I used to plan to have bread with a meal. And instead, I started experimenting with making brown rice, which now I can actually find in the freezer section. So that can be an after work food to add to my meal. I make quinoa. I've made millet. Quinoa and millet are nice because they cook faster, kind of more like a white rice level, 15 to 20 minutes. Brown rice takes a long time, but like I said, I have found it in my freezer section so I can heat it up faster if that's what I want. Now, those actually fill me up faster, so I'm eating less. And also with the whole grains, you get a little bit of protein in there, besides a lot of fiber. So much healthier because I need more protein and fiber for my menopause body. And protein and fiber are better for weight loss. So you can see that how this can achieve a goal. All right. What lessons are here for yourself? So number one, if you want the goal you thought you were going to get with gluten-free, this is what you do. So number one is pivot away from flour. If you're looking at breads, try a sprouted bread, or if you're at your farmer's market, maybe buy a craft-made ancient grain bread. Those are going to be a better choice for you. Ask yourself the question, what else could lunch be besides a sandwich? And I feel you. I was a sandwich every day person when I had to go gluten-free. And so there was a lot of mourning there. Now I was stuck with it. I did not have a choice because I got very sick if I ate bread, and that gluten-free bread at the time was really quite awful and really hard to swallow. I had to drink so much water just to get it down. And those of you who are gluten-free know what I'm talking about. But those breads are easier now. But I still have not gone back to sandwiches. So what else could lunch be besides a sandwich? Write down 10 to 20 things, because there'll be some gold ideas in there. You'll say, oh, actually, I could try this. Oh, actually, this would be easy. Maybe I'll experiment with one of these other ideas for a week. Number 2, start eating some whole grains instead of bread with a meal. You'll find that some of them are quite easy to make, or you can find them in your freezer section, parboiled, and all you have to do is heat them up in your microwave and put a scoop on your plate with your foods. And you may find that these are an interesting new way to eat. Okay. Number 3 is to look at what nutritional opportunities do you have if you were thinking, I was going to make a pretty big change anyway. What could I do to really up my nutrition that would nourish me and would probably serve my weight loss and menopause body goals? All right. So with each meal, you want a full serving of protein. It is very likely that you are a little low on protein if you haven't been paying attention lately. So you want the size of your palm and the thickness of your palm, at least, maybe a little bit more, and especially make sure you're getting it at breakfast, because that's the time when we don't tend to have it if we're not paying attention and choosing carefully what we want for breakfast. A scoop or 2 of vegetables with every meal would really help. Now, when you're thinking, one of the pivots that can be away from sandwiches is to cut up whatever you're going to have for that sandwich and put it on top of a cup or 2 of leafy greens with a no sugar dressing or with oil and vinegar. Now, not only is this going to help you with weight loss, but it will be good for brain health, for your menopause body. So take a look and say, if I got leafy greens every day instead of sandwich bread, that would be a big change and would help you with, again, the weight loss goals and feeling better in your new menopause body. Okay. What other healthy foods could go higher up on your list? If you are a longtime listener of the podcast, you know that I like to eat berries every day. I eat them fresh. I eat them frozen. I like to go pick them. I try to grow them sometimes, but they are important to me. And I have shared that at some point in time, I decided that this was just going to be part of my budget, and I was going to feed them to myself every day. What I don't share at that time is I did that when I went gluten-free. There were a lot of losses at that time because I couldn't have a number of things. Now, you may not feel that way, but if you're thinking, I want to make a big change, what is it that you want to add in that you're like, this is worth it to me to pay the money for it and have it? And for me, that was berries. You will hear every guest that I have on my podcast talk about how, well, berries have the best science for our brains, for our heart. They detox our skin. They decrease cancer in the gut and other places. The fiber helps us have a healthier gut. You just can't do better than having berries every day. So, is it that for you? Or maybe it's just something else. Maybe you're thinking, I don't buy vegetables for lunch and dinner. Maybe I want to start doing that, adding a meal where I definitely pay for good vegetables. So that is the information I have to tell you today. So I've talked about why gluten-free does not help you lose weight, especially in 2024 with all the new, more highly processed gluten-free swaps. I've told you why gluten-free isn't better for your new menopause body. Those gluten-free swaps are highly processed foods and are really not what we're looking for. But I have told you what pivots you can make that will give you what you want when you were thinking about going gluten-free. You were thinking it was going to help you lose weight. You were thinking it was going to help you be healthier in your midlife body and beyond. And just to recap what those pivots are, number one, pivot away from flour. Sprouted breads, put that food over leafy greens instead. Number two, experiment with some whole grains. Start cooking them. Some of them are easier to make than you think. Or one thing I didn't mention today was when I'm making whole grains, I'll often on the weekend make a big pot of something and I'll just save it in the kitchen so I can pull a scoop out for my meals throughout the week. Number three, really look at your nutrition again. Because if you're thinking about going gluten-free for weight loss or menopause health, then it's a good time to look at what you really need in your meals for nutrition, what you want to prioritize for good nutrition for your menopause body that will likely also help you lose weight. And so you can have your goals that you wanted when you were thinking you were going to go gluten-free, but don't go gluten-free. It's not necessary. All right. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's been terrific being together with you.